want them to hand over information about their content and the people listening to their
Oh my God.
to the government.
Imagine
Trudeau.
getting a hold of Alex Jones's email, but people who donated to the truckers got their bank accounts closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is wild.
Yeah.
You got locked out of all of your money because you donated to a cause where you didn't think that people should have to take an experimental vaccine in order to be able to work to drive a truck.
But
Really?
Yeah.
Really? You think that's okay? Like, that's so not okay. The fact that those people aren't up in arms. The whole country didn't freak out and demand a change. Like, you can't have, that's dictatorship stuff. That's
Right.
what that is. It's Banana Republic stuff.
Is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau coming for Joe Rogan? Last month, Canada's federal broadcast regulatory agency announced a new mandate requiring online streaming services, including podcast platforms, to register with the government by November 28th. The order applies to streamers generating $10 million or more from the consumers of their content through their platforms.
Independent creators are worried that their online success will now depend on the degree to which their content is deemed Canadian by the government, according to reporting from SAS Rav Arora, who writes that the new mandate could mean Canadians will no longer be able to access certain popular Spotify podcasts. Podcast giant Joe Rogan reacted to Trudeau's new podcast regulation plan and Canada's recent government policies as a whole. Let's watch.
they then want them to hand over information about their content and the people listening to their
Oh my God.
to the government.
Imagine
Trudeau.
getting a hold of Alex Jones's email list. Not just the truckers, but people who donated to the truckers got their bank accounts closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is wild.
Yeah.
You got locked out of all of your money because you donated to a cause where you didn't think that people should have to take an experimental vaccine in order to be able to work to drive a truck.
But
Really?
Yeah.
Really? You think that's okay? Like, that's so not okay. The fact that those people aren't up in arms. The whole country didn't freak out and demand a change. Like, you can't have, that's dictatorship stuff. That's
Right.
what that is. It's Banana Republic stuff.
Wow. He said it right there. That's dictator stuff. Trudeau is trying to turn Canada into a dictatorship, controlling media. Oh, man. I mean, first it was the, charging the social media platforms to be able to publish Canadian content. And now this. If this doesn't concern you, it should. Freedom of speech is going by the wayside if we keep this man in office. Let's continue.
Essayist and co-author of the Illusion of Consensus Substack, Rav Arora, joins us now to weigh in on what the new rules might mean for Canadian content creators. Great to have you with us.
Hey guys, great to be here.
So tell us more about what exactly is being proposed. This sounds very concerning given, not given specifically what Justin Trudeau's government has done in terms of free expression, but frankly, even if the government had a sterling record on this subject, I would be very worried about having any kind of, licensing regime for content creators vis-a-vis any government.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that on the surface, there doesn't seem to be something directly concerning. I mean, it was designed to be a policy to help and uplift and amplify Canadian content creators, specifically Indigenous content creators and content creators of minority backgrounds. And so they've said they want podcast platforms like Spotify and I assume places like Rumble to register with them so that they can follow these mandated guidelines that would help uplift and promote Canadian content creators. But the problem is the parameters for what is Canadian and what gets decided as Canadian enough is kind of ambiguous. And we know that this government in the past, like the CRTC in particular, the federal regulator for podcast platforms, this is what they want to do. They in the past have demonstrated a fairly censorious record, such as a couple years ago when one radio program was talking about a case of a professor in Quebec who was under fire for mentioning the N-word, which was in the title of a book. And they were talking about the case, and they just mentioned the word in an explicitly non-racist way, but they were just talking about the story, and they mentioned the N-word multiple times. And then the CRTC, the federal regulator, forced CBC, which is the CBC television and radio broadcast platform for all of Canada, which has this specific radio program, which had these hosts mention the N-word, to apologize and to show some evidence that they are going to do things differently and that they're going to take some serious measures to correct this problem. And so whatever your personal view on the N-word is, whether you think that you should be able to say it in a non-racist way or you should never be able to say it in any context, it doesn't matter. The problem here is that the CRTC forced the CBC to issue an apology. So the question is, how are they going to do this in the future? Are certain podcasts that violate specific policies or parameters of medical misinformation, for example, which is something that potentially, my own podcast with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, which I am a sole proprietor of here in Canada, we cover COVID issues and a lot of the mixed consensus and misinformation surrounding vaccines, masks, and various public health mandates. Could that be then violative of what the Trudeau government considers accurate information on those topics? That's the question, because clearly in the past, they have erred on a very specific side, therefore, in my opinion, stifling free speech.
Okay. First of all, I don't believe in using the N-word generally, but there is certain times in discussions or in this case in podcasts or in broadcasts where certain words are going to be used. It's going to offend people. My philosophy on that is, if there's something that offends you, then move on. There's podcasters I won't follow because I disagree with them. I don't like the language that they use. Foul language offends me. I can take a little bit of it, but when every other word is the F word, that offends me. I don't follow them. But that's up to you. It shouldn't be up to the government regulating that or controlling that. Depending on who's sitting behind the desk at the time, can pick any word and say, you know what, that's offensive. You can't broadcast that here. Any word. Think about that. Think about that.
I hope you can speak a little bit more to what the bill actually says, because honestly, I'm reading about it and it's confusing. It seems to have a lot of different prongs and maybe operates in different ways. One description, I'm reading from the CBC, says it requires streaming services such as Netflix and Spotify to pay to support Canadian media content like music and TV shows. So that's what you're talking about trying to facilitate, uplift, boost Canadian content when you were talking about Indigenous content and the like?
Yes. Yeah. That seems to be part of it, although there's a lot of vagueness and confusion around how exactly this is going to be imposed.
Right.
And we have at least a little bit of history from the past few months when Bill C-18 was passed. And I don't know if you guys covered it on the show, but basically all Canadian users, including myself right now, cannot access media sources on Instagram. And I think the Hill is included in that, actually. Yeah. So if I go on Instagram, if I go on the Hill's Instagram account, I can't look at any of your posts because Bill C-18 mandated places like Instagram and Facebook to impose this like 4% tax fee, essentially, in that they would have to give back a certain amount to Canadian media outlets as a way to compensate them for their work. And Instagram and Meta, they said, well, we're already providing you a platform where, because of us, you're generating how many millions of dollars for airing your content here. So we're not going to, further compensate you guys for a service that we're giving you. And so the result of that is that Instagram and Meta failed to comply and refused to comply with this mandate. So what's happened here is now, because the government mandated them to compensate and they haven't, now Canadians can access various media sources on Instagram and Meta. So the concern now here with podcasting is if Spotify and Rumble and other places refuse to comply with this federal Canadian mandate, what is that going to mean for the future of accessibility for various podcasts?
But what does
Wow. I'm going to post this video down in my description page there, as well as a link to Rav Arora to his YouTube channel. Very informative. What are your thoughts? Comment below. What are your thoughts? I think this is dictatorship. This is socialism, and it really bugs me and bothers me. What's next? Anyway, leave your comments below. I'm going to cut this short. I have another meeting here shortly. So anyway, thank you. This is Papa Tom. Remember to subscribe, like, comment. Remember you are loved and that God loves you. You take care and have a great day.